It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
This is Phil Ferguson, and you are, of course, listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. I'm going to keep some of the intro stuff here shorter than normal because I have, again, a lot of segments, and I think you're going to like all of them. A little later on, we have our interview. I have my interview with Adam Chalom, and we are going to talk about Humanistic Judaism. That's great fun and places you can go in Chicago in case that's your kind of thing, your cup of tea, if you're looking for a community and don't want to go to like a church or a synagogue. I then have, right after our little break coming up here, a shorter segment on home refi follow-up where I answer some questions that people have asked and readdress issues in hopes that it makes it more clear what I talked about in the previous episode. Now, so hopefully that helps. I also have a new segment, completely new segment, on private placement REITs or non-traded REITs. My opinion is very negative on this type of investment, and you're going to find out why. This is not like a REIT index fund from Vanguard or any of the other big names that create a REIT index funds. I'm perfectly fine with those as a reasonable but yet small portion of your portfolio. This is a non-traded REIT, or I call it private placement REIT, that someone sells to you for a very generous commission, and they probably don't even know how it really works, and neither do you. And there's a great big contract that you sign, but you didn't read it. I haven't read it. I'm not going to read it. You're not going to read it. It's just, it's another clever way for people to separate you from your money. And some people I have talked to, clients and non-clients, none of them, not a single one of them was sold a private placement REIT by me, but they were sold by someone else, even sometimes a fiduciary advisor or someone who claims to be a fiduciary advisor, but usually a broker or an insurance agent or some other financial planner sells them these things because when they blow up and it becomes clear that you are not getting your money back. Note, I do know of one case where someone did make money on this. It wasn't much, and it took them 5 to 7 years to make it, and it wasn't much. So you're missing out on all the opportunity cost of the reasonable places you can invest. So that's private placement REITs. And then we'll have the end of the show, and just because it's so different, I have another segment after the end. So I guess it's not really the end, but I'll have my closing remarks, and then we'll have one more segment, which is a rant, I guess, about a music video that someone sent me about, what is it called? Modest is Hottest. And it is apparently a well-known Christian singer who I've never heard of, and I'm fine with that. Actually, I would be better if I'd never heard of him. Matthew West made this song about how his daughter should dress and how he treats his daughter and how he wants to control what they wear and what he's going to do if they don't follow his rules. And I guess this will be the warning here. Maybe I'll do a warning in the closing segment too. Trigger warning, I guess, are we still using trigger warning? If this kind of stuff bothers you, you might want to skip it. It's not good. It's not cool. So anyway, we're going to take our quick break here and get into some of the real content of the show. This Investing Skeptically segment is kind of the home loan refinance follow-up from the previous episode or two. Gotten quite a few emails, and most of them are very well done and thought out, and people had really good questions. But a couple of them, unfortunately, expressed confusion over what I was suggesting. And so apparently I'm not clear enough. And that's okay. This shit's complicated. There is a driving force in a lot of people in America, maybe other countries too. I don't know. But in the United States of America, there is this overriding goal for a lot of people to pay off their house. The only way they can retire in their mind is if the house is paid off. I get that. I am sensitive to that. And back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and maybe you got this from your parents, or maybe you lived through that, interest rates were ridiculously high. And if you got a home loan for 13, 15%, I'd pay it off as fast as I fucking could. Every goddamn penny I could push that way, I'd push that way, because I don't want to borrow money for 15 fucking percent. I get it. Cool. Interest rates are not 15% today. That's the real big difference. If you can get a loan for 3%, and if that loan and the interest on that loan are partially or fully tax deductible for your situation, please check with your certified tax professional. Phil is not a certified tax professional, but check with your tax professional. See how much you can write off. Maybe they can help you calculate exactly what the effective rate of your loan is after considering tax consequences. Maybe your crazy ass low 3% loan is something closer to 2.5% or 2% if you're in a higher tax bracket. The weird thing with higher tax brackets, while you're paying higher taxes, deductions become more valuable. So ask, find out what your situation is. If you are in a situation where you can finance or refinance and get a loan for 3% for 30 years, for me, in my situation, and I think the mathematics agrees with me, I'm going to borrow as much fucking money as long as I can if some dumbass is going to give it to me for 3% or less per year. That's me. Because I don't think of debt as being evil in any way. And this is often a huge difference in mindset between people that have family wealth and people who have struggled all their life in poverty. And Dave Ramsey promotes the fuck out of this. You should never have any debt. You should never have any debt. You owe this debt. You've got to pay this debt. I think you should pay your debts within reason. Another topic for that. But if you can use a loan to make money for yourself, is that also bad? For Dave Ramsey, it is. Well, for Dave Ramsey, it's not. For Dave Ramsey's listeners, it is. I think it's okay to borrow money. It's like any other financial tool. You need to understand it. You need to know what the fuck you're doing. And it helps if you have a little bit of excess cash or good cash flow where you can cover if something doesn't go your way for a short period of time. But the essence of it is, if you can borrow money at 3% and invest it in the stock market in the long run and make 10%, it's a huge fucking win. I do not have to. Please don't make me do the math on this and, make a spreadsheet. Borrowing at 3 and investing at 10, good. The real problem comes in that 10% average theoretical return. There's my hedging and quantifiers. It may not happen this year. It may not happen next year. The market might go down 50%. You might lose your job. You need to make sure that you can still pay the 3% loan. Now, this is again part of that, what is it? The poet I always quote, do or do not, there is no try. Yes, that's Yoda, by the way. Do or do not, there is no try. This is something you do for a lifetime. It's something that you get every time you buy a house. It might not work every time, but sometimes it's going to work and you're going to make a lot of money because you had a whole bunch of money that you could have put in your house that does nothing. The only thing it does is it helps reduce the 3% loan, which is cool. If your only options are put money in the house or put it under your mattress, pay off the fucking house at 3%. But if you can make a blended rate with bonds and stocks of 5% or 6% or 7%, or you're young enough that you put it all in the stock market and make 10%, clearly 10 is bigger than 3. Now, there will be some people who say, Phil, I don't care about the money. I just want to know that I own my home. Cool. It's your money. Do your thing. I'm just giving out ideas. It may not be right for you. But when someone then tells me, once my home is paid for, I can't lose it, you have a grotesque misunderstanding of how reality works. You have taxes on that home. In some states, like Illinois, especially near Chicago, those taxes are a lot of money. There's insurance you've got to pay on your home. If you own the home, I guess you don't have to have home insurance because you could just take on that risk. But you're going to have to pay the taxes. And if you don't pay the taxes, the state or the city or the county is going to put a lien on your house. And if you don't pay the taxes long enough, they'll foreclose on you. They'll take your property as collateral for the taxes that you owe. Owning your house does not necessarily mean you can never lose it. Shit happens, right? But if it's, let's just say, a modest house in the Midwest, $250,000 house. It'd be cool to own that $250,000 house and not have principal or interest payments on that house. I get it. That's cool. But what I think is even cooler is that during that time that you spent all that money making the payments on your house, if you still now owe $200,000, instead of having a house worth $250,000 and you own it for $250,000, you only own $50,000 and you have $200,000 in debt. But all that money that you could have put into the house and had it paid off grew at a faster rate. So now you have $300,000 or $400,000, and you could tomorrow write a check and pay off the remaining $200,000 of your house if that's what you choose. So the thing that's more cool than owning a $250,000 house is having $400,000 or $500,000 of money and investments, knowing I can pay off the fucking house. That's what I like. But everybody's different. So maybe my little rant, I don't know if that really clarified anything, but it's the idea of a long-term process. In some unique case, not unique, unusual, uncommon cases, I have helped people that are near retirement refinance their house, take a big chunk out of it, and to have some kind of cash flow. And I think that's better than a reverse mortgage because it's not so tricky. It's not so complicated. But whatever. Anyway, some thoughts, follow up, hopefully productive, on home loans and refinancing at 3% in this magical time in the middle of 2021 where interest rates are low. Hopefully that helps.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
This Investing Skeptically segment is going to be about what I call private placement REITs or non-exchange traded REITs, and maybe talk a little bit about Fundrise. I've had a couple of emails asking about Fundrise, and I'll mention that briefly. And then I'm going to go over some real world actual examples, at least as much as I can share with you, the listeners, because it might involve clients' personal information. So I'll have to be careful with that. What happens in a private placement REIT, and this is something that I've seen over and over and over through the 25 years that I've been doing this. And of course, if your advisor is, someone brand new and they've only been in this a year or two, they don't know how this stuff works. How in the fuck would they? It's not possible. You actually have to go and be fascinated with, fascinated with how this stuff works and not just buy the sales pitch that the salesperson gets. Because what happens is companies come around and they have webinars, and seminars, and weekend trips to fancy places, and they buy you free food, and they tell you how you can make a ton of money, not only for yourself, but for your clients. And they give you all the propaganda, all the words to say, everything that's been legally approved by their department to say. And then they go and they meet with individual clients, people like listeners to the show, and they say all those things to convince you to buy what they're selling, what is paying them a generous commission, usually 7 to 10%, although it could be higher. And they make a lot of money. They do not have to know how this stuff really works. Matter of fact, that might be a big fucking hindrance to making a lot of money, because if they know how it works, now they might have an ethical dilemma selling it to you. I'm not saying all of this specifically about Fundrise, but it's the big new boy on the block, and they're advertising like crazy. I'm getting emails about it, and I covered Fundrise specifically. I think specifically, it's in my notes, in show 323. That is from December of 2019. So I'm going to refer to myself back in time a year and a half ago, show 323. You can listen more about Fundrise there, because I don't think I really want to dig into Fundrise again. But I want to cover ideas in general with some specific funds that I know what has happened, because we've gone through the whole cycle of it. So let's get into that. So just to be clear, I am now not talking about Fundrise. One of the examples I'm going to use is North Star Healthcare REIT. And this is called a non-traded REIT. My phrase I like to use is private placement. It's not really tradable. So you give them your money and you get back what you get back, and you don't really have an easy out or a way to control what's going on. And like a lot of REITs, they promise you very high returns. And this one specifically has been involved with healthcare. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, whatever the fuck that means. They might buy nursing homes. They might build condos for senior citizens. A whole lot of different things that have to do with healthcare, usually older citizens, and real estate. So that's what they do. And so I have a client that owns this. Actually, I have a couple of clients that own this, not because I recommended it, not because I sold it. They came to me with it, and they're very hard to get rid of. When they're sold to you, they use the phrase, oh God, what is the phrase? Shares are redeemable, so you can get your money out if you want. Well, technically that's true, kinda. Shares are redeemable, but until they're not. And even when they are redeemable, it is with their blessing, and only so often and only so much. Funds like this, not specifically the North Star Healthcare one, but a lot of these REIT funds, they will use the argument that, hey, we're buying these giant apartment complexes or multi-unit nursing homes. We can't just pull cash out. When we spent tens of millions of dollars buying this place or building this place. And that makes sense. It does. It really does. but they might have a limit, like every 6 months you have the opportunity to apply to get your funds out, but the maximum amount that they can give is 2% of all the money that's been invested. So if 5% of the people want their money out and they're only going to give out 2% or give back 2%, now they have a system. Maybe it's first come, first serve, maybe it's lottery, maybe it's allocation. You only get part of your money, and the rest is still, quote unquote, wink, wink, invested, but you're not getting it back. The other thing, of course, is why these are sold, other than the generous commissions. And I'm actually looking at a law firm's website in case anyone has North Star Healthcare REIT. Levin Papantonio and Rafferty. I don't know how to say it. But look for those words, or just send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com, since I butchered the name of this attorney law firm. They are considering suing and are gathering information from prospective people who might want to sue North Star Healthcare REIT. Now, whether this would be a good thing to do, I don't know. I do not have a professional opinion on using a law firm to try to recover your losses in this case specifically. I have no idea. I haven't looked enough. But it might be something you'd want to do. So the shares originally sold for $10.20. Now, again, I have multiple people that have bought this, again, before they hired me. And I'm going to talk about one of them specifically because some events just happened yesterday, and this has been bubbling up with people asking me about Fundrise and other REITs. The shares were originally $10.20 a piece, and this client, I'm just going to make up some numbers, but keep them to scale so you get the idea, might have invested something close to $100,000 in this. And one of the really nice things from the prospectus/contract is that you can expect a 7 to 8% dividend every year. And as you know, now, and even several years ago, dividends are really low. So this sounds like a way, okay, it's real estate, it's with healthcare, they're going to pay me 8%. This sounds pretty good. Well, one of the first tricks that is often employed is that the dividends are only paid as additional shares. That's right. So you own $100,000. If that year they give you 8% dividends, or $8,000, they give you $8,000 worth of more shares. Which, okay. I mean, that's something that would concern me, and it should concern you. If it's not publicly traded, first of all, if it's not publicly traded, I'm probably not going to buy it. I'm really boring. Because I think like everything is a booby trap waiting to go off and fuck me out of my money, which is kind of what this stuff does. But they don't give you dividends. You don't have the option of taking the cash. They just give you more shares. And so when these things launch, they often have a 7 to 10, maybe 12-year time horizon. So that's when you can really get your money back out. And in the meantime, they pay you dividends by giving you more shares. So in the beginning, the share price stays close to 10. It might even go up to 11 or 12, because the higher the price, the fewer number of shares they have to give you to, quote unquote, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, give you dividends by giving you more shares. And that often goes on for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they will still take new money and allow people to pay higher and higher prices. But then you get to a point where things change, where they come out and they reevaluate the value of their business, and it's no longer $10.20 or $11 or $12. It's now $9.20. And they're still paying you dividends, but then they calculate that their shares are now worth $8 or $7 or $6 or $5. And these can come after year anticipations. And of course, if something is now valued at $5, you're only getting back half of the $10 that you put in. In this case, the relatively current guesstimate from North Star Healthcare REIT services, or their calculations, they think these shares are now worth $3.89. However, they're the ones who say that because they're able to say whatever they want within some limitations. And apparently there's some tricky, fun rules that don't require them to follow GAAP, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And they can use very creative methodologies to come up with $3.89. And now it might actually help them to lower the price because now people want their money back. New money's not coming in anymore. This is all kind of a life cycle with these things. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So now that it's 4 or 5, 6 years old, the value per share falls dramatically. And now if you want to take your money out, you might get $4 a share. So you're going to get, if you started with something like 100,000, you might get 40,000. You might even get a little bit more than 40,000 because they gave you some more shares. And I had a client a year ago actually got an offer from the REIT company, and I don't think it was North Star, but they got an offer from the REIT company, and they actually made money on a private placement REIT. I was blown the fuck away. They made 20% return on this REIT over about 5 years, so maybe 4% per year. You could have made that in a bond fund. You could have made that in half a bond fund, half the U.S. stock market. You would have crushed it way, way better than that because it's not just the return that you get in that case. Someone actually made money in a REIT. That's the first time I've seen that. In a private placement REIT. These are totally different, by the way, than REITs that most mutual funds buy, including the Vanguard REIT mutual fund that I recommend on a regular basis because it mostly buys companies that are in real estate. But sometimes it doesn't work very well. I've talked about another client several months ago that is in a bad situation, and now we have this one where it specifically, they have received an offer of $1.31 from a third party. We have no fucking clue who this third party is. We have no idea if they have some kind of cabal-like relationship with North Star Healthcare REIT. I do not know whether they do or do not. But an offer of $1.31 per share. This represents a loss of 85% in 6 years. 85% loss in 6 years. That's if they sell it at $1.31. My guess, and what I've done in the past, and so far it's worked out, but it's a fucking guess. I don't really know what this thing is worth. I don't know that I can even figure out how much it's worth. I don't know if they can figure out how much it's worth. But if someone is willing to offer $1.31 and wait for 2 or 3 or 4 years for this fund to close up, they're doing some calculations that tells them it's worth much more than $1.31, because otherwise, why the fuck would they buy it? And now we have, I guess, since they're willing to offer money, an expert opinion here that it's with at least $1.31 or 15% of what this person put in 6 years ago. And so it's not just losing 85%. It's that your money didn't go up when everything else went up for the last 6-7 years. So it's a brutal thing where 100,000 could have become in the 200,000 in that time frame, and now that 100,000 has become 15,000. It's heartbreaking. So the question, of course, and it would be up to each individual person, do you take the offer? Who's the offer from? Do you really know who they are? How does that work? Do you have to pay taxes on that? Is there transaction costs? Do they have a 40-page contract that you've got to read? I don't know. And it's all very complicated. Or do you hang on? And this is kind of where I would lean towards. Okay, I've already lost 85% of my money. Do I hang on hoping I get something more than that back? In the past couple of times I've experienced this where people have gotten third-party offer letters, they usually end up getting double, maybe 2.5 of what was offered. So if $1.31 per share or about $15,000 is offered, maybe you can get $30,000 to $40,000 out of this when it's all said and done. So the next problem comes is that while this may have said that their anticipation is 7 or 10 years to liquidate everything and pay you back all of your money, there's always a problem. There's always a thing where they can't sell the property for the price that they want, or payments for rent, or people who are buying the condos, if it's one that holds condos, are behind. And because of this ruling or that judgment from the government, for example, like people don't have to pay rent for a while, and then they can't be foreclosed on, all of that revenue dries up. And that could happen to any kind of real estate thing you might be involved with that was unexpected. But here, there's always something. There's always something that they find to blame why the money isn't coming in fast enough or why they can't sell the properties right now, because what they built or what they bought, they have to sell it to have enough money to pay you. And so the fund kind of goes into this gradual, slow death over years, where if they get some more money in, they pay out some more. And then of course the value of your shares goes down as they keep paying you out money. And as in the case of North Star Healthcare, let's see, I'm looking at this law firm's webpage that I mentioned before. They were, I forgot to mention, it's something like they calculated that 86.5% of the money you put in gets to start being in the investment, because 13.5%, which is not all commission to the salesperson, but other costs and fees and expenses are all eaten up before they even fucking start. So you're 13.5% behind the ball before anything else happens. They used to have a higher, I think the dividend was something like 8, and it then went to 6.6. And then in 2017, they cut it to 3.31%. And then I think in 18, they cut it to 0. So if you bought this in like 15 or 16, you might have gotten dividends for a good couple of years as additional shares, which were higher priced. So you've got fewer shares. And then they cut the dividend rate. Then they cut the dividend rate. Then they cut the dividend rate because they don't have the money to pay the dividends. And in this lawsuit that I'm looking at here, it is alleged that North Star never had any dividends to pay. And so what they had to do was borrow large amounts of money against the properties that they either bought or built, and then they can pay dividends. And so this matches a pattern of private equity and hedge funds that we've had on people that have written entire books about. This is a very common strategy, because you borrow all of this money, and if it goes default in bankruptcy, you don't have to pay the loans back. See, so they borrow someone else's money to give some to you, and then they stop giving it to you. Then they pocket it and pay themselves. This is another one of the things when I've gone through in deep reading mode to try to read 150 pages of one of these things. Often, and now I'm going to specifically declare that this may not be how North Star Healthcare REIT does things. But I've seen from other REIT companies that they collect your money and they go to build a building with that money. But the builder that they hire is another company that is owned by the same people that own the REIT. So it's not bid out for a fair market cost of what it takes to build. And there's nothing preventing them from hiring themselves as another company to build the property that they're going to build for you to make all this money on. So that's what they're going to do. Now, that construction company may make a customary and normal amount of profit. Maybe it makes something a little higher. And then sometimes these companies, once the place is built, and of course it had all these subcontractors for roofing, for plumbing, for electric, that they may or may not have any business interest in. But then there's a real estate company that has to sell you the condo. Well, guess what? They have a real estate license. Well, a company has a real estate license, but it's owned by the same people who are building the building, who took your money. And so those people get paid very well. Maybe more than they should, maybe not. But there's that expense. Repairs, maintenance, the office that rents places out or shows people empty spaces. All of those things can be owned by the company that collected all the money from you for the REITs. So they don't even have to necessarily keep ending up with bad real estate purchases. Because I would think in general, real estate goes up over time. How do you guys keep losing so much money? Well, it's fees. It's fees and expenses that get paid to this person and that person and this person and that person. And they're totally in control of all of that. And as long as they follow whatever minimum regulations and or laws might be there, somehow it ends up just kind of burning through the money. Then they stop paying dividends. The price of the shares start falling. And who knows, my client that got the offer for 15 cents on the dollar, that third party company might even be fucking owned by the REIT. I don't know. Neither do you. And that's the horrible problem. So this is the kind of stuff that can happen with a private placement REIT. Of probably 9 or 10 that I have dealt with, only in one occasion did the client make money. And that was the one I talked about a little earlier. That's the only one I know of. Every other single one, they've lost anywhere from a lot to a ton to, you got to be fucking kidding me. And this one, it looks like the floor might be 15% of the money you get back. I've got my fingers crossed that it might be something more like 30 or 40% of the money back. And again, that still may take several years beyond the original expected closing date of the fund where you get your money back, because they can't give you the money back until they have the money. So somehow they have to sell all this stuff. And whether they make a good deal or not, you could also question, because it doesn't matter to them because they've collected all the money through their construction company, through their rental agency, through their real estate company, if they're engaged in that type of activity. This may not be, again, caveats abound here, this may not be what North Star is doing. North Star may have been playing this straight up legitimate, and they just are so grotesquely incompetent that they lost 85% of the money. That's a possibility. I'm not sure which is worse. If someone loses 85% of your money over 6 to 8 years, is it worse that they're criminals or engaged in manipulative, bad business, or they're incompetent? I don't know. I don't know that it matters at this point as far as the investor is concerned. So that's some thoughts on private placement REITs. Some of this may or may not apply to other companies. Some of it may or may not apply to North Star Healthcare REIT. I don't know. But this is why I talk about this. And even though I've talked about it probably 5 times in the last 7 years I've been doing this podcast, here I am doing it again because it doesn't go away. And how are you, as an average investor, going to know what this thing is? And how are you going to know that the person that is selling it to you, which might be an insurance agent, it might be a broker, it might be a financial advisor that is perfectly happy taking commissions to sell you things that they do not understand? They don't have to understand them. Their job is to sell them to you. And when you buy them, they get a big fat commission and everybody up the food chain is happy. And you don't know that this is a ticking time bomb until 3 or 4 or 5 years go by, and then you're fucked. Oh, I was going to add, my client with this North Star started the process of requesting their money back, and they got a cold, hard answer from North Star Healthcare. We are no longer doing redemptions, period, at any cost. And of course, the thought is, well, wait a minute, where's that written? Well, it's in the contract somewhere. Then under certain conditions, which now have been met, they reserve the right to not give anybody any of their money back until they're ready. So now it's an open-ended thing where they give you what they decide to give you and they decide when to give it to you. I just cannot believe that this shit is legal. But here it is. It's still out there. If you have a private placement REIT in your portfolio, if you can, GTFO. Get the fuck out if you can, because it's not going to get better. Don't look at it and go, oh, I'm down 20%. I'll wait till it comes back. It might. It might. But I'm going to bet that it's not going to. So if you have something and you're not sure what it is, you can let me know. You can send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com. Do not send any documents first. Just send an email. Then we'll talk over the phone. Maybe I can figure it out from that. But then if you really want thoughts and maybe prayers, you can send me a statement that details what you know about your investment, and I can look into it. And maybe I can even help you figure out how to get out some of your money now before it gets even worse. A couple things you can look for on a statement. You will usually have a symbol. Mutual funds will have symbols. Stocks have symbols. ETFs have symbols. If it has a symbol, it's probably not a private placement REIT. And you can Google that symbol. You can go to Morningstar and look up that symbol. And if you can find that as something that's publicly traded, the odds are you're going to be okay. But if you still can't figure it out, let me know. We'll talk about it. If necessary, I'll look at some documents. We'll find out what you have, and then I can give you some suggestions, and you can go on your way to try to get your money back. It's not really a service that I do. I wouldn't even know how that would work, unless you hire this law firm. Maybe. Again, Levin, Papantonio, and Rafferty. I'm just going to go with Rafferty. You just got to say it fast, like you know what you're talking about. If you have the North Star Healthcare REIT, you can Google those words together and find them pretty easily, I'm sure. That is all for private placement REITs today. Hopefully it didn't depress you too much, especially if you own one of these things. And we'll go on with the rest of the show. The Phil Ferguson Show is for educational purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be interpreted as personalized investment advice. Your investments should be based on your situation, and you should consult with your financial advisor before taking any action. The show may contain ads. These ads are placed into the show by the hosting company after I finish recording and editing. I have little control over the content of the ads, and you should not assume that I support their products or claims. If you choose to support the show via the new Patreon page, that support does not create an advisor-client relationship.
Please welcome back to The Late Show, Ricky Gervais. You don't care about dying?
No, I don't. Well, I don't care about being dead because I won't know about it.
You don't know.
That is the best thing about being dead. You don't know about it. It's like being stupid. It's only painful for others. So I don't want to die. I love living. It's brilliant. It's the best thing ever. Like,
yeah. Something instead of nothing is definitely
exactly.
better. Yeah.
But I mean, it's and I think people on Twitter, they know I'm an atheist, and they say things like, "Oh, what's it like after you die?" And I go, "What was it like the 13.5 billion years before you were born?" It's probably like that. I think we're like tourists, right? We didn't exist for 13.5 billion years.
That's interesting.
Then we've got like 80, 90 years, if we're lucky, and then we go back to never existing again. So you've got to make the most of it. It's amazing life. It's brilliant. There's so much to live for.
Still an atheist? Has that softened in any way, your atheism?
I only believe in 3 or 4 gods now. No.
What I mean is, like, as you approach your final boards, as they say, you don't think, like, maybe I'll hedge my bets and light a candle or something like that. Just in case.
No, I mean,
you know about Pascal's wager. Like,
well,
you know?
Yeah, well, people say that to me as well. They say, why don't you pray just in case there's a God? And I say, why don't you hang garlic over your door just in case there's a Dracula? Imagine if you were the only person in the world to believe in God. You'd be odd, wouldn't it?
Well, I would be committed. I would be committed.
Exactly.
Insane asylum.
Yeah. And that's you saying that, not me.
If you had to pick a god,
Yeah.
who would you pick?
Thor.
I said you can't pick Stan Lee, but okay. So why Thor?
Big hammer.
So if God doesn't give you comfort, what does?
Dogs.
That's lovely.
Yeah. I believe in dogs.
It's God spelled backwards.
Dogs are amazing. Dogs are amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same as your guy.
Right, yeah.
But if you don't love a dog back, it doesn't burn you in hell. A dog loves you more than it loves itself. And that's why I worship dogs.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, we have our interview next, and I'm so excited. An actual friend of mine, I know it's kind of weird to say an actual friend, I don't know, a friend of mine. I could edit that out, but I'm not going to. But anyway, a friend of mine and a fellow Chicagoan, Adam Chalom, is here with me today, and he is running, I don't know your actual title, so you'll correct me here when we get done, but you run the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism. Adam, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, Phil. My technical title is the Dean for North America of the IISHJ, but I answer to lots of titles.
Did you say
another
Dean?
hat I wear, by the way? Dean, D-E-A-N.
Okay, very good.
Yep. And actually, that's my email address if anybody wants to reach me as well. It's Dean, D-E-A-N, at iishj.org. I'm always happy to answer questions or help people explore more about what it is we do in the world of humanistic Judaism.
And of course, I could have, maybe should have, said Rabbi Adam Chalom. And I can't help myself, so hopefully this is okay. That sounds like a very Jewish name.
Yes, people sometimes don't believe that Rabbi Shalom is actually my birth name, but I wasn't born a rabbi, but I was born Adam Shalom. And
being born a rabbi, that would be a twist.
Yes, well, the other twist is that for many in the atheist and humanist world, the whole idea of a humanistic rabbi strikes them as a bit of an oxymoron, or at least as some sort of a contradiction in terms, because they think of rabbi as imposing doctrine and ritual practice and telling people what God's will is. And that is the role in some Jewish communities. But in a humanistic Jewish congregation like the one I serve in North Suburban Chicago, which is called Kol Hadash, Kolhadash, which means new voice, my role there is as an advisor, a counselor, a ceremonialist, a teacher. In fact, the word rabbi itself has the root meaning of teacher. And so we see our role not as being authoritarian, but as having some authority in Jewish life and humanistic philosophy. So I teach classes on ethics and on making good decisions, on being a good person, but we also explore what it means to celebrate Jewish holidays, Jewish life cycle events, understanding our ancestral culture that we've inherited, and making choices that are consistent with the humanistic philosophy, but also celebrate a creative relationship with this wonderful and unique culture that our ancestors helped to create, and we are the inheritors of, that we get to adapt for our own uses in our own time.
I think for me, humanistic Judaism makes more sense than humanistic Christianity.
Yeah,
but maybe this
because
is me.
being Jewish is not just it's not just a religious set of beliefs. It's in fact it's an ethnic family culture for many people. It's a sense of a continuity with the civilization. There were Jewish people long before the version of Jewish religion that was dominant for the Middle Ages existed, because there were Jews before it, and there have been Jews after that who've become secularized, but who still identify with this sense of peoplehood, is the general term that's used. It's like being part of the American people. It's a sort of fuzzy, amorphous identification with the group and its culture, and you can have a lot of diversity within that, including diversity of religious belief, where Christianity and Islam to some extent have a sense of religious beliefs involved. Although I will tell you, I do a fair number of weddings where one partner is Jewish and one partner comes from a Christian or other background. And when I talk about a cultural Jewish identity, as what we do, the Christian partner sometimes says, "Well, that's sort of my Christianness. I do the Christmas tree, but not the nativity scene, and I do the Easter eggs, but not the Passion story." And they connect with a kind of inheritance of religious culture, if not an active religious belief. So sometimes I'll talk about religious heritage as a way to understand it, and then that might apply to a secularized Christian or a secularized Muslim. I mean, there's even a group, you probably know of them, called ex-Muslims of North America.
I do indeed.
And they have to grapple with the particular challenges of being an ex-Muslim, going into a world of secularism and humanism that are not the same as being an ex-Christian or as coming out of a religious Jewish experience to something that's more secularized, like humanistic Judaism.
I was thinking of the wedding example that you mentioned, that it's probably a selection bias, because the people that are inviting you,
yes,
and if there's a Christian and a Jew being married, they're probably both pretty cool with the fact that the person that they're marrying is someone a little bit different than they are.
Yes, although sometimes it's both different religious heritage and different religions.
Yeah.
That is, they're active believers. So I've done weddings where the Jewish partner is someone who wants to attend synagogue, and the Christian partner is someone who wants to be actively involved in a church, and I'm someone who's willing to officiate or even co-officiate in those kind of circumstances with a Christian clergyman, or clergy person, I should say.
Yes.
And in that case, I'm sort of the best fit. It's not perfect. It's not an identical, match of who they are and what their Jewishness means in mine, but that's fine. I'm happy to serve their needs at that time. And then you also get families that are really more intercultural partnerships, where they're from different heritages, but they're both secularized, they're both atheists or humanists, and so then it's a very different dynamic in the ceremony. And sometimes you get an example of a really different belief system where one is a religious believer and one is secular, from whichever side, you know. And so I've had couples find me where the Jewish partner is actually a little more religious, but the Christian partner is secularized, and they look for humanism, and they found me.
Very
So,
nice. Well,
I really serve the whole spectrum.
I was just going to say, how far will you travel? I mean, you just the Chicago area, north suburbs? Are you going to go to Ohio? What's?
Well, primarily it's the Chicago area. I've still got school-age kids at home, so I don't travel for weddings very often. Usually about a mile radius. I'll go to Milwaukee. I'll go down the south suburbs, even Indiana occasionally. I'm based in the north suburbs, but most of my ceremonies are done in the Chicago area. You know, as time goes on, I may be willing to do the destination wedding thing, but I'm also happy to talk with couples in other areas about what their options might be. I have plenty of colleagues, both in the general humanist world through the Humanist Society and in the Humanistic Jewish world through our organizations that I can refer people to. And I always say that choosing the right officiant for your ceremony can make a big difference, because that part you can control. You know, arguing over the guest list with your parents, or dealing with the florist, or what the weather's going to be, you know.
Right.
That you can't control. But who the officiant is and how they can create a ceremony that really reflects your values and what's important about your partnership, that's irreplaceable. And so it's worth finding the right person. And often a humanist officiant, whether it's general humanism or a culture-specific humanism, can really make a big difference.
That really resonates as a, I don't want to be offensive, as a sales pitch, as a brilliant sales pitch, because when I used to DJ weddings, especially in the early days, many years ago, people would be like, well, why should I have a DJ instead of a band? And I would talk about how important it is, and that's something they can control. And, you know, a band might know 20, 50, 100 songs, but I know 3,000. And they sound just like the originals because that's what I'm playing. And so it's also better than having a friend with an iPod. Well, not always, but I actually toyed with the idea very, very long ago of creating a CD, and people would tell me what they wanted to hear, and I would create like 3 or 4 CDs, and for a fee, I would mix it all together, put it in order, and I would go and deliver and plug in the boombox and put in the first CD, and so whoever showed up first could just hit play. And it would be a professionally curated list that might actually work, but probably not. But yeah. It's good fun.
Right. Well, I mean, this is one of the challenges we have now, actually, with the increasing secularization of society. You know, you and I both know that the so-called nuns, NONES, are on the rise.
Yes.
In population proportion. Membership at churches and other religious institutions is going down. And the clergy have lost the monopoly on performing these kind of life cycle ceremonies where people can get ordained online, or have a justice of the peace, or go to Las Vegas. I mean, some of those existed before, but now it's much more common. And so I find sometimes I am selling myself to people to make the argument that having some knowledge and training and experience and expertise really is worth it. So I sometimes will I'll sometimes make the comparison that you have to decide, is this wedding event like mowing the lawn, plumbing and electrical work, or surgery? If it's like mowing the lawn, then anybody can do it. Neighborhood kid, your friend, whatever. Right. And if the edges don't look perfect, then it saves you some money, and that's fine. And if it's not perfect, it grows back. You know, it's a lawn, not a big deal. Now, plumbing and electrical, you can open the box yourself. You can turn off the water and try to futz around with things. But many people will choose a professional who knows what they're doing for something that important for your safety and well-being. And then if it's surgery, I'm not going to have somebody who got their degree online doing surgery on me or anybody I care about. I want someone who really knows what they're doing and has training and expertise. And this is where sometimes I think in the general humanist world, we run into challenges because we want to democratize people's identity and values. We want to let people make their own choices for how they live their lives and how they connect to who they are. And yet there is a place for having trained leadership that knows what they're doing, that has talent and experience and expertise, and may even be useful in helping to organize a community and get things moving and running well. But if we have this allergy to anything that walks like clergy or quacks like clergy or smells like clergy, then we're going to, in some ways, be kind of flailing around and not have the competent spokespeople that we need, or have the talented leadership that really will bind people to communities. I found, whether it's funerals I've done or weddings I've done, people really feel that they're part of something important and it's emotionally meaningful to them if we have that personal relationship, and if they feel like what I provided for them was really meaningful. So I think that it's a real asset if you can do it. And sometimes in the secular and humanist world, we've been so breaking away from religion that we've left behind some of the good pieces that the human needs that religion needs.
I was
really excellent. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to go into that very thought, that it's about the process, and there are some things that work, and those can be shared and stolen or adopted, and there's things that don't. And popped into my mind several years ago, I was at 2 funerals within a few months of each other, and one minister, I think that's the right word in this case, didn't really know the person that had passed away. But they spent a lot of time and effort talking to friends and family, and collected information and stories and wove this beautiful tribute into the service. And I was impressed, just from a performance standpoint, from a caring and concerning and sharing the life of this person. It was amazing.
Good.
The other one was, I'll just going to use the same word, minister, that actually knew the person that had passed away. And so they didn't make any effort to get any stories or any information or learn anything about the person's life that they might not have known. And then when they got up there, they basically told people, you're going to burn in hell unless you accept Jesus. And, the 30-minute sermon, I guess, was 1 or 2 minutes about the deceased and 28, 29 minutes about Jesus. And even the really religious people in the family were offended and insulted, because they're like, we thought we were going to hear about the person we loved, and that wasn't there. So it can be done.
I always say to family,
yes,
it can be done well or it can be done poorly. And I'll tell you, it's really hard for me to sit through a bad funeral.
Yeah.
Because I know I could do better. But I also find that one of the tricks of being a sensitive leader, and this is true in all walks of life, not just in the community of meaning, we'll call it, if we want to include both religious and humanist communities. In a community of meaning, the leader has to realize it's not about them.
Yeah.
It's not their event. It's not their performance. They are there to facilitate the experience for other people. And so I've had funerals where I never knew the person, and I've had funerals where I knew the person very well. We had the pianist at our congregation who played music for every life cycle event and every major holiday, and even the minor holidays. She was there all the time. So I saw her once a week for 5 years, 6 years. And so I knew her very well. And when she died, I still did what I do every time, which is meet with the families and get their impressions and give them a chance to speak. And because I don't assume that I have the monopoly on truth. And that's a kind of, maybe it's a humanist epistemological modesty, that if we believe that no one person has a cosmic truth that is true at all times and places, then we have to learn from other people, and we have to get multiple perspectives to find the truth. And so maybe if we think about a eulogy as describing a statue from many angles, the more angles you get, the more true to life that picture will be.
I like it. Now, of course, the group here, I'll try the name again, International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism. How can someone learn more about that? Where do they go to look? Your YouTube channel, maybe? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
There's a number of places. So on our website, which is iishj.org, you can find a link there for our YouTube channel, which has dozens of videos on all different kinds of topics. We've had past conferences we posted. I did a whole series on an introduction to Jewish history from, again, a secular and humanist perspective this last year. That's a playlist there. So absolutely, our YouTube channel, which is iishjvid, V-I-D, all one word. You can find that at youtube.com/iishjvid. If you want to find out more about my local congregation, which again is Kol Hadash, you can go to www.kolhadash.com. If you do .org, you get the one in San Francisco. So you want kolhadash.com for the Chicago area. And again, you can read more about me. We've got an audio podcast that we put out of programs from the congregation. They have their own YouTube channel of a variety of programs. So there's plenty of ways to find out more. And as I said, I'm always happy to get emails, Dean, D-E-A-N, at iishj.org. Happy to answer any questions or even take some challenges. If some of what I said pushed a button for you, I'm happy to explore that, and we can talk some more.
Absolutely. Another question here, but just in case my listeners are picking up the very faint sounds through their headsets or something, it is pouring cats and dogs at my house right now. So in case you're wondering what those sounds are, and even some thunder rumbling, I don't know, it may not even come through because of my setup, but I hear it. It's very distracting for me. So my apologies to you and to my listeners. And so when do you meet and where do you meet, and what's a meeting like? It's a service? Is there candle lighting? What's going on?
Sure. So we tend to use the word celebration, although plenty of people use the word service too. We're not really serving anybody.
Yeah, sure.
Unless you're talking about the food afterwards.
Right.
We're serving each other, I guess. But service is fine too. People use that because, again, as an anthropologist, if you were watching this,
Right.
it would look like a service.
It would.
So we always welcome people at the beginning. We'll have a couple of readings and songs. Usually the readings will be in English because we want people to understand what's going on. Often the songs will be in Hebrew or Yiddish or other Jewish languages that have that kind of emotional resonance. But we always have translations into English so people know what they're saying. It's a very important value for us. We don't want people to say things they don't believe,
Right.
no matter what the language is. And often we'll write it in the English letters as well for people who don't read the Hebrew letters. So we know that we have a variety of people, including people where one partner is Jewish, one partner is not, as part of the community. So we want people to feel as fully comfortable as possible. We'll always do a memorial reflection as part of the service. Sometimes we'll share names of people whose death anniversary occurs in that season, once a month. There's a Jewish tradition of doing that, and we find that, again, meets a very human need. But we'll also open it up for people to share the names of people who are missing in their lives, that they feel they're absent at that time of year. So that's always meaningful. We do a wine sharing as part of that. Makes the sermon jokes a little bit better, but it also helps to create community.
Right.
We do light Shabbat candles, again, a symbol of light and enlightenment that doesn't have to have supernatural overtones. We'll have moments of silence. We have special music pieces as well. We'll often do a sharing of, this is evolved from the Unitarian Joys and Concerns tradition, but we use Jewish terms for them. We say simchas and tsuras, which means happy times and difficult times. So people can share something wonderful in their life or the life of people they know, or a challenge someone is facing if there's someone dealing with a medical situation, for example, or it could be a candle in celebration of something wonderful or in memory of someone wonderful. Memories don't always have to be sad. Sometimes you remember people who died and you feel very fortunate to have been a part of their life and to have them part of yours. So, and in terms of the talk or the message, sometimes it's more discussion-based. Sometimes we'll watch a short film and discuss that, or pass out an article and look at that. I also do more sort of directive sermons where I talk for 20, 30 minutes and then open up for conversations, reactions. Those topics can be on issues of general humanist interest, politics, science, history, and also Jewish-specific topics on cultural elements, holidays, life cycle events, Jewish literature, from the Bible all the way through modern times, and so on. It really gives us a very wide library of things to choose from, so that it's not going to be the same thing every week. In fact, one of the reasons some people leave traditional synagogues is that it's the same thing every week. They read the same prayers every service. They read the same Torah reading every week. Over the course of the year, you read one part of the first 5 books of the Bible, so that in 1 year you read the whole thing. But then you start to cycle over again, and then do the cycle over again the next year. I mean, it's fine to look at once in a while, but if I had to read the same book every week for my whole career, I would lose it. So fortunately, I get to choose that sometimes we'll talk about the traditional Torah portion for the week, and other times we'll talk about modern literature, music, art, all kinds of options. And I think that makes life more interesting.
Absolutely. Are there any parts of your organizations or what you're doing that we haven't covered that you want to make sure we get out there?
Well, so I talked a little bit more about the congregational work with Kol Hadash. The International Institute has basically three major activities. One is we train professional leaders and rabbis. So I mentioned training, having expertise and knowledge. We train those kind of leaders. The second is that we provide adult education opportunities. So we do online services and programs and seminars, either in weekend form or, again, individual learning opportunities. And we publish materials. So we've developed a number of books that talk about, again, Jewish history, varieties of secular Jewish philosophy, how to approach life with this question. In fact, one of our founding rabbis, Sherwin Wine, wrote a wonderful book called Staying Sane in a Crazy World. If you decide the world doesn't run by human agendas, then we have to find a way to make meaning out of that. And
Right.
we did that through a wonderful sort of humanist self-help book. So that's our job in the Institute, is training leaders and rabbis and ceremony officiants, providing adult learning opportunities, and publishing materials to spread the message, but also to provide meaning and depth to people's understanding of who they already are.
I like it. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. I know your time is valuable and you're busy, but I really appreciate you coming on to the Phil Ferguson Show.
Thanks, Phil. Great to talk to you.
I would like to take a moment to thank you again for listening to the show. I greatly appreciate you being here. If you want to help me out a little bit, a couple things you can do is go leave a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts or with Stitcher. My show is actually hosted directly on Spreaker, but they don't have a way to leave reviews, to my knowledge. And so if you want to leave a review, that'd be great. You could also go to patreon.com/Phil and sign up for as little as $1 per episode. It's just a sign to me to say that you find the show valuable and worth listening to, and I appreciate that. And just a brief reminder after my closing remarks here, and a little bit of bumper music, you're going to hear my rant about the song Modest is Hottest by Matthew West. Again, warning, if this kind of content of Christian adult male telling his girls what to wear and how to wear it and stuff like that, you might just skip it when you hear the next piece of music. Just end the show. It'll be okay. I won't be offended. I'll never know. But if you want to hear how bad some of this stuff is and my commentary along the way, hang in there and listen to it, and then try to forget it. Maybe that's the best advice I can give. In other personal news, my wife and I are looking at the possibility of going to Italy late summer, early fall, maybe late fall, mid-fall. But I don't know. Things keep changing. They have this now Delta Plus, and some countries, including Italy, haven't vaccinated anywhere near enough people. So that could increase the risk of the spread of mutations of COVID-19 into some other variant. So it's a little spooky. It's a little scary. I think right now, if I got on a plane to go to Italy, you can do it as long as you have, I think, a negative test result within 3 days. I'm not sure if you have to test when you land there, but my concerns are that while I'm seeing some ridiculously low flight cost, because apparently the airlines are keeping some planes running so they don't have to lay off everybody and travel has come back a lot. My concern is that if we take, if you went there for a business trip, a couple days and back, it'd probably be okay. But what happens if you go there and the rules change again? And so now, I guess I could live with being quarantined in Italy for a while. But if you're in quarantine, you're stuck in your room. And unless I have a really beautiful view, that's not much better than being stuck in my house. So we're thinking about it. We have actually sent out our passports to get them renewed. They should be coming back to us in a week or two. And maybe they'll drop all the requirements and it'll be an easy thing. And we just pop off and go across the pond to Italy for, a couple days, couple weeks. I don't know. But I'm terrified to plan something out in the future, a couple of months from now, because a couple of months from now, if something goes wrong or the illness gets more people infected as the weather changes and people go back inside, we might have to cancel our whole trip, and maybe they won't give us money back like they did a year and a half ago. So I don't know. If you have any genius ideas on how to get to Italy and not be able to, be able to get back, let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to wrap up the show, and you're going to hear a little bit of bumper music, and like I said, then my rant on Modest is Hottest. So thank you once again for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Ciao. Well, as promised, this is the weird bonus section today. Put it at the very end of the show because it's something very different than what I normally do or have done. But I cannot help myself. I cannot stop from sharing this, and I think you're gonna be shocked too. And because of the apparent controversy this has created, I don't want to put the song in its entirety at the end of the show like I might normally do with some of the scary, creepy as fuck kind of Christian music and videos. There is a video of this available. I don't know if it's copyrighted. Someone sent me a super secret link to it, so I don't know that I'll be sharing that, but you may be able to find other people critiquing this on YouTube. And just, I guess I'll say, you're going to have to go with my position here, my opinion, my understanding. The video is worse than the lyrics. So just, all right. Anyway, let me just start this, and I'm going to do it in little segments so I don't get in any trouble with copyright rules, because I'm using this fair use for commentary purposes.
Dear daughter.
All right. Is that all you need? Is that all you need to know that's going to get creepy as fuck? Apparently, this is written by a well-known Christian music writer, apologist kind of guy. I don't know if I want to mention his name because it could be very embarrassing for him. Matthew West. So anyway, it starts like that. Let's keep going. Wrong button. Over here.
It's me, your father. I think it's time we had a talk. The boys are coming around 'cause you're beautiful, and it's all your mother's fault.
What? It's the mother's fault? Was he not there? I don't know. I mean, it's just, that's kind of weird. That's not too creepy yet, but very weird. And the video, of course, has the mom in the kitchen where she's supposed to be, and the girls on the couch kind of ignoring the dad, which maybe is a really good strategy for them as a life skill, because apparently they're going to fucking need it. So let's go on.
I've been trying hard to raise you up right. No drinking, no smoking, no swearing.
Okay, I guess no drinking, no smoking for a certain age, because those things have been shown to be at least slightly unhealthy to very unhealthy, and may hurt growth and development, especially in a child. So, okay. The swearing, come on, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I think it was one of the greatest days in my life when both of my children showed that they understood the proper way to use a word like fuck. It's part of our vocabulary. It's commonly in use. And it's all about being able to use it correctly. Anyway, that's for another song. Here we go. Let's back to the music.
But your old man's got a little more advice when it comes to the clothes that you're wearing. Listen, modest is hottest.
Wait. Okay, he's going to talk about the clothes. So we're getting all into shaming, controlling women, young girls, what they can, what they can't wear. I'm revolted already. It doesn't really need more, but there is more. And I've heard enough. But then this thing, modest is hottest. Okay, news to me. Apparently this is a well-known fundamentalist, purity culture, Christian evangelical thing. I didn't know. But if modesty is the hottest thing, is he now instead giving them lessons on how to get a man? Because it's the hottest, right? So it's suspense filled, and the boys really want to know what's hidden down under. Or, to be fair, some of the other girls want to know what's hidden. So if modest is hottest, maybe they shouldn't be modest because he doesn't want them, or maybe he does want them to get married right away or have a relationship. And these are dating tips. I get it. These are dating tips.
The latest fashion trend is a little more Amish, a little less Kardashian.
A little more Amish? Really? Boy, I think if I'm Amish, I'm insulted. Amish is not a fashion style. It's part of their religion, which has its own problems, and we're not going to go into today. Oh, which, by the way, if you are a former Amish person and want to explain to me and all the listeners what it means to be Amish, let me know. Les Kardashian.
What the boys really love is a turtleneck and a sensible pair of slacks.
Okay, so it is dating advice, and it's only dating advice in reference to boys liking his girls, his daughters. So that's a little too normative for today's culture. But what boys really like is a turtleneck sweater and a sensible pair of slacks. So bravo, Dad. Excellent dating advice, how to make your daughters the hottest to attract all the boys in the yard. I guess that's what we're going to go for here.
Honey, modest is hottest. Sincerely, your dad. If I catch you doing dances on the TikTok.
Oh, dances on the TikTok. Yeah, he's fresh and fly and groovy and knows about the TikTok.
In a crop top, so help me God, you'll be grounded till the world stops. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not.
Oh my God. You're going to be grounded forever. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. What? This guy is psychotic. Girls, run. Run for your lives. Somebody go rescue these girls from this household. This is sick. This is absolutely crazy, over the top. Let's hear some more.
'Cause modest is hottest.
Okay, I've heard modest is hottest. I guess I don't need more of the chorus. It's in there like 20 times. And of course, he's regularly showing his girls in modest attire and also in not modest attire. So as part of the demonstration of what girls should not wear, he has his own children wearing clothes that he's telling them that they should not wear, and there's a video showing the girls in the clothes that they should not wear because why? Because this is something valuable to him? I don't know. Let me go to the next part.
All the parents be saying their prayers that all their girls may be wearing more layers. Moms and dads round the world, yeah, they're on their knees.
Okay, obvious commentary here. The parents can be on their knees, I guess, for prayer. Is that what this is not about a sexual thing? So the parents are on their knees, and of course in the video the parents are dancing around like complete lunatics, which, you know, could be funny if it wasn't in the context of this. And most of the scenes, the teenage girls are rolling their eyes, and I don't know if they're trying to ham it up or it's really a secret cry for help, which would not surprise me at all.
Lord, make them more like Jesus and less like Cardi B. No offense to Cardi B. I'm sure
Of course, no offense. No offense to Cardi B. And then he has this little line here.
she's a really nice girl and Jesus loves her, but I just think modest is...
Okay. So he critiques Cardi B. He says, don't be like Cardi B. I'm sure she's perfectly fine and normal and a nice girl, and I don't mean any offense. Well, fuck you. I tell you what, I am not going to say that I don't mean any offense when I say this. Fuck you. I mean offense because you're offensive. This whole song is unbelievable. And you know what? I'm not even going to play the last minute of it. You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. But I am going to close with this because a lot of people I did a little research on the internet, and people are thinking this has got to be a joke, right? This is something some atheists made to make Christians look crazy. Well, I tell you what, atheists don't ever need to make videos to make Christians look crazy. Are there perfectly fine and normal and caring and loving Christians in the world? Of course. It's not what I'm saying. But the thing is, the really devout Christians, it is almost impossible to tell them apart from a joke. So a lot of times for me, it becomes a self-parody, which is what this was. And this has exploded on the internets and the YouTubes. So there's me being cool, the internets and the YouTubes. So apparently, within a couple of days, this exploded to the point that he took it down. He took it down. He took down the video. Matthew West took down the video, or at least the platform that hosted the video, along with many of his other videos. took it down, and he issued an apology. I think this is an apology. So now I'm going to transition and read what he wrote as his apology. And I have my air quotes up, his apology. And this is from Matthew West. I'll try to, you'll probably figure out when it's my comments versus his comments, but I'll try to be clear. Quote, I'm blessed to be the father of 2 amazing daughters. I wrote a song poking fun at myself for being an overprotective dad, and my family thought it was funny. You know what? I bet they did. I bet they did think it was funny. They looked like they were having fun, hamming it up in the video. I have no doubt that they thought this was funny. That's the problem. That is the problem, that you are so deep into a fucked up religious perspective of the world that you thought that this was funny. You thought that you could make fun of controlling women, compelling them to wear certain types of clothes, and controlling their lives into the future, and shaming these 2 young girls. You could shame anybody, but in this case, he's shaming his 2 daughters and making it clear to them what they can and cannot wear. I will continue with quoting him again. Quote, the song was created as satire, and I realized that some people did not receive it as it was intended. End quote. It was created as satire. No, I don't think it is. There is a difference between being funny and satire. It's not satire. It is absolutely not satire. And sir, I suggest that you don't even understand the meaning of the word satire. You believed this shit and you wanted to present it to other Christians in a fun way. You wanted to make slut shaming, modesty shaming, controlling women funny. You wanted to make it humorous. And by the way, never does the phrase "I'm sorry" appear in this apology. Never does he say "I apologize," and he actually signs it as proud #girl dad. Are you fucking kidding me? He's fucking kidding me. But he says here finally, quote, I've taken the feedback to heart, end quote. No, I don't think you have. Quote, the last thing I want to do is distract from the real reason I make music, to spread a message of hope and love to the world, end quote. No, sorry. No hope, no love in this video, dude. This is just you being a creepy as fuck weird dad who is showing his daughters off in clothes that he, in this song, in this video, says is inappropriate, and then teaching them the shaming lessons from Christianity of how they're supposed to dress. There's another verse or two if you want to go dig for the song. There's some YouTubers that have taken it apart that include more of it than I do, but I figured I'd talk about this for 5 minutes, and now we're way over that. So that's really the end. I'm just going to stop and see you next episode.